Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Nick Tate. We warmly welcome the family of Private Joseph Cecil Roseman, whose story will be told shortly. We also warmly welcome the delegation representing the Army Indigenous Development Program attending this evening's ceremony. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you're able to do so, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will tell the story of one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Joseph Cecil Roseman. Joseph Cecil Roseman was born on the 9th of September 1894 in Cecil Plains to the south of Dalby in Queensland. Roseman was the youngest of 9 children born to Nicholas Roseman, who was born in Germany, and Jane Morgan, a Scottish immigrant. Joseph Roseman attended the local Cecil Plains school and later worked as a station hand. Roseman's mother died in 1913 when he was 19 years old. Roseman enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 17th of December 1915 at Rockhampton and immediately began his training. Joseph was one of 3 Roseman children to sign up to serve for Australia in the First World War. On the 20th of April 1916, Roseman sailed from Sydney aboard the SS Hawke's Bay, bound for Egypt. Australian troops at this time were sailing to Egypt for what was known as doubling of the AIF. It was a period of growth and reorganisation in which new battalions were created, and units recently evacuated from Gallipoli were reinforced with recruits. On the 27th of May 1916, Roseman joined the newly formed 49th Battalion, part of the 13th Brigade of the 4th Australian Division. Roseman trained in Egypt in preparation for service on the Western Front in France. Conditions in the deserts of Egypt were harsh for the men. While Roseman and his battalion were marching to the Australian camp at Serapeum, many troops suffered from heat stroke and exhaustion. Water was so scarce that guards had to be posted at the water troughs to prevent the men from drinking too much and making themselves ill. Roseman sailed from Alexandria in Egypt on the 5th of June and arrived in France on the 12th. On the 21st of June, after less than 2 weeks in the country, Roseman and the 49th Battalion had their first taste of the hardships and horrors of trench warfare. They joined the front line near Pozières in the Somme region of northern France and spent their time manning and rebuilding the badly damaged trenches. Throughout the period, they experienced intense German high-explosive artillery, shelling, and suffered many casualties. On the 3rd and 4th of September 1916, Roseman and the 49th Battalion took part in a major battle at Mouquet Farm. The battle had been raging there since the 8th of August. Roseman and his unit were used to form part of a renewed attack to gain ground in this important objective. Roseman and his unit advanced through no man's land in the early hours of the 3rd of September after an artillery barrage, and despite heavy German artillery, machine gun and rifle fire, they were able to take some of the German positions. The next day, on the 4th of September, the Germans launched a series of counterattacks on the Australian positions, which eventually forced the Australians to withdraw. Joseph Roseman was killed in action at some point in this costly and bloody battle, most likely at some point during the German counterattacks on the 4th of September. In the chaos and confusion of the battle, his body was never found. He was 22 years old. His name is listed on the Villa Bretonneau Memorial in France, which lists the names of nearly 11,000 Australians who died in the Western Front and who have no known grave. His name is commemorated on the Roll of Honour on my right amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his name listed in the Villa Bretonneau Memorial is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Joseph Cecil Roseman, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old,
Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.